The following podcast was recorded at noon on Monday, March 31st, 2025. All information presented was true and valid up to the time of recording. Let's get started. Welcome to Crayon Box Politics Weekly, your go-to podcast for breaking down the latest in state and federal legislation. I'm Carl, a retired Marine turned political enthusiast, here to help you stay informed and engaged.
And I'm Avery, your co-host on this journey. Together, we're going to unpack the policies and decisions shaping our lives one bill at a time.
And this week, happy Liberation Week, Avery. This week, we're going to do things a bit different than we usually do.
Yeah, Carl, I'm really hoping that it's, an April Fool's Day dilemma that we're going through here. Like, do you want toothpaste in your Oreo type bullshit? Instead of doing our regular thing, where we take on the congressional activity, the presidential activity reports, and the looking at our legislation across our nation, we're going to focus on a specific issue.
This week, we're going to focus on a topic that has been at the top of the news over the last 7 days. And it's important to keep talking about this and not let it out of the spotlight. And that topic is what everyone fondly calls Signalgate. It's an issue that, for me, is immensely important given the fact that I spent the last 20 years in the intelligence community, and what occurred should have never occurred and cannot be explained away.
Oh God, here we go, guys. I am going to try to keep him off his soapbox as much as possible. I do have a pack of crayons. We'll see how much that works, but no promises. I can't make any promises this time.
And I'll do my best not to talk too much, but I would recommend that you grab your favorite crayon from the crayon box because we are about to draw some clarity from the chaos.
I got questions. Well, I got a question, and it's going to start you on your soapbox, but here we go. So, when you were in the Marines, you did intelligence stuff, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so you know better than to type in a signal chat with any classified information, correct?
Correct.
So explain this to me, and how do we handle, well, I mean, I know how we handle it, but how, for our audience, how do we handle any of the classified stuff, or even maybe sometimes the not so classified stuff?
So that's a pretty in-depth question, right?
That's fair.
But what I'll say is that every single one of these individuals has a top secret clearance, and every single one of those individuals has what's called caveats, right? So in layman's terms, we like to talk about, oh, well, I've got higher than a top secret clearance. There is no such thing as anything higher than a top secret clearance. But the way that the top secret clearances are broken out is based off of need to know, right? So, and I can't really go into any more detail about that because just the nature of how it's broken out has restrictions.
It's classified. Yeah, I got it.
Right. So, but essentially it's based on need to know. And the way that we use networks and computer networks is built based off of the level of classification, the level of security that each aspect of the information is associated with. And as you'll see later on down the road, there's these people, specifically the National Security Advisory Group. They talk a lot about, oh, well, we didn't include sources, means, and methods in our discussion. But the reality is that what they're talking about comes from the point of view from the intelligence collector side of the house, where you base your classification off of sources, means, and methods by which you got the information, right? But what they don't understand is that there is also a classification rating when it comes to operational security. But again, to your question, right? The way that we handle it is we put it in silos, right? We have controlled unclassified information, right? And while it has unclassified in it, it's controlled. Therefore, it is a classification, right? It's something we used to call confidential. We no longer call confidential because
People got
I have
confused.
no idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Stupid
then you
people.
have, and CUI deals with like the lowest, if it gets leaked, it gets leaked. It's not really going to harm us as a nation. But PII fits into that controlled unclassified information. HIPAA, controlled unclassified information. And then you roll into secret, right? And secret is, it's going to give us a black eye, but we can live with it. Or it's something that,
Right.
it's known, but it's not completely known. Like we're just going to kind of stick this in here because we want to make sure that we protect the information. Now, CUI is transmitted and operated on unclassified networks. That's just the way that it is, right? It just has control markers in it so that we know, hey, you're not going to send this message via email without a certain type of security attached to it. Secret is communicated via what's called the Secret Internet Protocol Network, right? So, or SIPR, and
Yes.
essentially, but
Yeah,
what SIPR
because
is it's go
Because
ahead.
you have SIPR and NIPR.
Right,
Okay.
right. So NIPR is like the unclassified. I don't know what
Right.
N stands for.
I don't know either, but yeah, you had SIPR and the NIPR.
And the NIPR,
I remember
right?
that.
So
Yep.
the two
And you have a special
operate.
computer like for the SIPR.
Well, they're not. It's not a special
It-
computer.
It's just
It
not
is
with the. It was for when we were deployed. We had the computer for the SIPR was like in the back room, hidden. Like you had a whole wall. Like that was where it was, and you weren't allowed to touch it, go near it, no nothing. So
right. So like the SIPR computer is a SIPR computer, right? A computer is a
right,
computer. Like, and I'm not going to go into details into like the
right.
type of computer that we use, but I will say it wasn't an Apple, which really upset me. But
Let's move it.
essentially, all they do is they clear it for access to the SIPR, and then they apply the IPs for the network that it's going to be put on, and then once it's put on that network, it stays on that network. It can't be
Right.
transferred over to an unclassified network. There is no intercommunication between the two. You can't send an email from your SIPR side to your NIPR side.
Yep,
Um,
and
and
no flash drives, no nothing. God help
and,
you.
and we can thank Chelsea Manning for that. But
You know, we're gonna throw some people out there. You got Sandy Berger, all right? Remember her? Like, holy crap, she be doing some
yeah,
shit.
so and we can relate to her, right? So Sandy Berger was a political appointee, and she removed classified documents from the archives, right? Like she was an NSA appointee. She served under Bill Clinton, worked all the way through. But here's the issue: is that when she pulled that information, she pled guilty when she got caught in 2005.
Okay.
Pled guilty to knowingly removing and retaining classified material. Say he.
Well, what
I don't know why I
material?
said she. He.
Well, I said she too. I apologize.
Yeah.
What did he take? Like, what was so that he wanted? Generally, you know what I mean? Because I heard it was like the 9/11 paperwork ish.
Yeah, it was
documents.
information related to 9/11. And it was the classified memos about the Clinton administrator's handling of terrorist threats. It was, in addition to that, he also was involved in trying to cut up documents in order to
crap.
destroy them, which is, again, illegal. You can't do that, right?
Right.
But his actions also, in addition to the non-political appointee, Chelsea Manning, those actions are kind of what led to the lack of ability to add like hard drives, the USB sticks. Because I remember when I first came in, man, USB sticks and using them to transfer information from one SIPR to another SIPR, that was a normal thing. That was just one of those things, and it was, as long as you marked the hard drive SIPR, then you could just bounce around and handle that, which was terrible. I'm not saying it was a great idea. It was probably one of the, it was a terrible idea, but it did happen, right? And so at the end of the day, you kind of boil that down. But those incidents did result in a need for tightening up of our security processes, right?
Right.
And then, you fast forward, we're not fast forward, but if you look at even further, right? So we talked about the unclassified, we talked about the secret network.
Right.
And what I've heard a lot of like the news media go into is like, oh, well, top secret information is transmitted on the top secret network, which is called the SIPR network. Wrong. Listen, folks, if there's anything that we're going to make sure that we get right, it's making sure that we get the information that we're providing to you right. And, I'll be honest with you, this was a podcast that I heard, and they were two lawyers that, have worked for the government in the past. So they speak a lot of legalese, but they probably don't speak intelese. I don't think that's a word.
I'm following you.
Yep. I'm going to coin it. Intelese.
Okay. All right.
So my word. So essentially top secret information is transmitted on the top secret network, right? And the top secret network is called the JWICS network. And what JWIC stands for is the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communication System, right? And we call it like the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communication System, but the reality is that it's been co-opted by operations years ago, same way that SIPR was co-opted years ago. But even then, right, like I can't take an email from JWICS and send it to my SIPR email, and I can't take my SIPR email and send an email to my JWICS account. They don't talk, right? They work on like in parallel to each other.
It reminds me of like the different VA hospitals. They don't ever speak to each other. God.
But this one is for like good reasons, right?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I get it.
I won't say that we have a tendency to overclassify, right? We do 100%, but at the end of the day, the issue rises about, what is appropriate. And I can tell you right now that Signal is not appropriate. And we'll go into detail later about, what makes what they said on Signal classified. And it is not sources, means, and methods.
So I want to keep us moving because you and I, we can sit here and talk and talk and talk, and we can keep you on your soapbox all day long. The next person I want to talk about is Valerie Plame. Plame. Yeah, Plame. And she had a CIA leak. Well, she was a covert agent at, but the administration for George Bush did her dirty.
Yeah, so they did her real dirty, right? So Valerie Plame was a CIA operative, and her husband decided to speak out publicly against the Iraq War, and specifically the Iraq War intelligence that led us into the war. He spoke out publicly, and then all of a sudden, a columnist by the name of Robert Novak started publishing information with regards to Plame, specifically with regards to her CIA status, and cited two senior administration officials. Sparked a massive federal investigation that resulted in the identity or defining that Vice President's Chief of Staff, Scooter Libby, was one of the individuals, right? Scooter Libby, we all remember him. Scooter Libby was involved in that process, right? And he was actually indicted in 2005 for perjury, obstruction of justice, and making false statements during the investigation.
Yeah, he had 4 felonies, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the dude discussed Plame's identity with reporters and then, under oath, lied about the fact that he discussed with reporters. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like, he did get a 30 months in prison, $250,000 fine, which was, of course, so graciously commuted by President Baby Bush. So he served no jail time.
Didn't Trump pardon him in 2018?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't recall. Did
he? Yep. I read it. Yep. Years later, he received a full pardon in 2018.
Oh. Well, there you go, folks. But so
Jesus Christ.
And I'm going to backtrack, right? So Sandy Berger was a Democratic appointee, took information dealing with the Clinton administration and the handling of terrorist threats, and I'm assuming tried to use that against Clinton. Valerie
Her
Plame
name could,
was outed to the public because the Republican administration wanted to ensure that she got the message that, hey, guess what? Even though your husband has First Amendment rights, we will still fuck you up. Um,
right?
and
And I mean,
all,
the Clinton. Go ahead. I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say the Clinton name just keeps coming up. You had Bill Clinton and all that bullshit, and then you got the the emails. So I
Yeah.
know that was
So
going to play into effect.
rolling right into the emails. If you remember, Sandy Berger got hit with money and 2 years probation, 100 hours community service, wasn't ever like cleared up by a president, wasn't commuted, wasn't nothing. Scooter
Pardon,
Libby,
yeah,
Scooter Libby outed a CIA operative and was pardoned. Like
right.
first commuted and then pardoned completely. Now a Democrat appointee, Hillary Clinton, had classified emails on her personal server. Now, it's important to note that these emails, the information in those emails was classified after the fact. So it wasn't classified before, it was classified after. It wasn't clearly marked as classified. And all of this is found in the multiple congressional investigations that Republicans have done on the Benghazi and on Hillary Clinton's servers, as well as the FBI investigation that went through and found that there was nothing, there was no there, right? So at the end of the day, like, she was found to have, she did bad things in the form of like being a dum-dum, right? Like, she was just
Right.
stupid. But
Absolutely.
but nothing was revealed, nothing was lost. It was just a carelessness, right? It wasn't even like intentional. You can't get them for being grossly negligent because, again, that information wasn't classified before it was on the servers. So at the end of the day,
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing like Petraeus did. He freaking mishandled classified black books.
yeah. So
He's special. He's special.
so Petraeus, he could have had like this amazingly brilliant career. But in 2012, Petraeus was working with a biographer, Paula Broadwell, and was also apparently having an extramarital affair with Paula Broadwell. But
it's always money or sex,
goodness,
man, or both,
and it's always these 4-star
or
generals,
drugs.
man. Like, but at the time, Petraeus was the director of the CIA, and in the process of trying to get his biography done, right? What he did is he shared with Broadwell binders, or like binders of classified notes that he took.
Well, like the little black book that you have for your dates.
Right.
I got
right.
you.
Okay,
Okay, gotcha.
And mind you, the way that we keep notes, especially in the intelligence side of things, right, is like, listen, if I'm going to take notes and they're classified, they don't leave the vault, right? That's what we called it. But
Right.
they don't leave the safe area. And we have to make sure that we annotate, if it's going to be a working paper, that we serialize the page, right? We give it a classification and we put it in a logbook, right?
Oh,
and again,
God, this explains so much.
We keep track of it, right? It goes through the process. The fact that he was able to do that, like, that it's indicative of a problem overall, where, again, this is another political appointee who just chose to ignore the rules because it benefited him, right?
Like, he should totally know better. Like, absolutely, there's no excuse at this point. He's a 4-star general. No excuse.
Right. So he was sentenced to 2 years probation and got a $100,000 fine, but did avoid prison.
Of course he did.
And of course, this was a lenient punishment compared to some lower ranking leaders. And we'll discuss one most recent event later on down the line when we get to it. And then that rolls us into President Trump 1.0. Right now, Avery, I understand that there's been a lot of classified spillage that has happened that we didn't talk about. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to focus primarily on the political appointees, because Signalgate is a political appointee situation,
issue.
if that makes
Oh yeah,
sense.
I can't wait to get there because we got some good stuff.
Right. And so in 1.0, right, it was revealed that senior White House officials, notably Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, were utilizing personal email accounts, private
But the
messaging apps,
emails,
right?
the
Like,
emails.
but they too were utilizing private messaging apps, personal emails for government business, right? Ivanka Trump used a personal email address to send hundreds of messages related to White House work. Jared Kushner communicated with foreign contacts via WhatsApp, right? And the Presidential Documents Act, right, requires that everything the president does, right, has to be recorded. Everything.
And
Um,
preserved.
and it's got, it all has to be preserved. It all has to be put into the archives. Everything, which is, we'll get to Mar-a-Lago here in a second. At the end of the day, right, what happened is that it got swept under the rug, right? Nothing happened to Ivanka. Nothing happened to Jared. Nothing happened to anyone that is, I said Presidential Documents Act, didn't I? Presidential Records Act.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Nothing happened to them. They got away with it, right? And so
See, here's my issue. Like I've said off record, and I've told you, look, I'm an asshole. My wife will tell you I'm an asshole, but I try to be a fair asshole. Like, if one person did something and it's wrong, and they got just almost decimated in a way, it should have been done the same way to them. And and I have an issue with it. Like, it should be the same across the board. Hey, you do some stupid shit like that, this is what should happen, and there should be a hey, this is what we're gonna do. You know what I mean?
well, you would think that that was
Irritates
the
me.
truth, but it gets
Right.
even worse, right?
I
And
know.
we
I
all
know.
remember the Mar-a-Lago raid that happened with the FBI and how President Trump was like, "Oh, they came in guns drawn." Well, the reality is that during the process, right, in 2022, the National Archives realized that some of the records were missing. In January 2022, Trump turned over 15 boxes to the National Archives. There were classified files that were found inside, and those were alerted to the Justice Department. The Justice Department went to the grand jury. Grand jury subpoenaed in May, saying that they wanted any remaining classified documents. Trump's team handed over a few more files in June of 2022. The lawyer certified that all documents had been returned. However, there was evidence, including witness statements, testimony, camera security footage, suggesting that there were more that were held back. So, on August 8th, 2022, the FBI executed a warrant on Mar-a-Lago, right? The only reason that I am going through this is because of the fact that I want to make sure that it is crystal clear that what happened had a supportable line of this from here to here to here. And you can see that there was an effort by the Trump administration, or excuse me, by then former President Trump, to prevent the government from getting the information and the records back that it was supposed to have, right? That raid resulted in the return of another 100 classified documents. 100, right? And those classified documents, they weren't kept in a secure area. They were kept in a bathroom, of all places. They were kept on a stage. They were kept in areas that were not secured. And so at
They
the
were
end of
just
the
tossed
day,
about.
just here, wherever it fits, it goes,
You
right?
you get a file. You get a file. Everybody getting a file.
Now, a special counsel was established in November 2022. And that special counsel went through the investigation process, right? In 2024, or excuse me, the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024, they started putting everything together and they started trying to try it. But Judge Eileen Cannon, who is a Trump appointee and who is a fervent Trump supporter, she blocked the effort at every step of the way, right?
Right.
Which resulted in the Mar-a-Lago case getting thrown out as soon as Trump became president again.
And I just want to mention the whole time that this was going on, and it really pissed me off, is that freaking there was like almost like everybody's gonna go through and find any documents and see what came up, and freaking Biden was doing the same shit. Everything was locked away, but he still has shit he wasn't supposed to have. Like, just come on, guys.
Well, to be fair,
It's
it wasn't
ridiculous.
locked away, right? So, and this is not us doing this insane false equivalency thing, because the reality is that it wasn't locked away, right? They found
Okay, that's fair.
classified material in his garage with his car. So at the end
Well,
of
I
the
mean,
day, like, Biden didn't handle classified information the correct way either. Neither did then Vice President Mike Pence, right? So
right? But
both
I
of
mean,
those
they
individuals.
found some. They found some in a locked closet at the Biden Center. And again, that doesn't
Right.
make it okay. But man, this is stupid. Like, they know better.
So the important thing here is that the first batch that was found in the lock closet was found because they were clearing out Biden's offices, right? And when they cleared out his offices, they found the stuff, and it was immediately turned in and said, "Hey, archives, here you go. We didn't realize we had this." A voluntary search of the Biden's home resulted in the revelation that there were more classified pages in the garage where Biden's Corvette is stored, right?
Oh, of course.
In the same process, right? Like, Mike Pence went through the same procedures, and they found classified information at his house, right? The end of the day, right? What this shows us is that our elected officials and their appointees really don't have like a solid grasp on what it means to have classified material. They're not held to the same standard. They're not held to the same applications. They're not even held to the same processes and procedures for handling classified information.
Now, I also want to point out that both Biden and Mike Pence, once their teams found more classified stuff, they self-reported. And so, I mean, that gives them some credit. Still doesn't make it okay, but at least they're like, "Hey guys, we fucked up. My bad." And took ownership of their fuck up.
Right. And that, again, that is like one of their major saving graces, right? Where, then President or then former President Trump, he fought tooth and nail to hold on to those documents. Oh, by the way, they've been flown back to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
But he did his best to hold on to those documents because they were his, because he's the president, or he was the president, right? Like, the dude is obsessive compulsive when it's about owning things, and he doesn't comprehend that he doesn't own shit. He's the president. He's the president for 4 years, and that's it. But that brings us into today, right?
The best part. Let's do it.
So what happened last week is that we discovered that Trump 2.0 and their use of private communication apps is no different than Trump 1.0. They're very loose when it comes to classified information.
And everything that they were asked about, like, before they got, confirmed, they're like, "Hey, are you good with this? Like, are you gonna do this shit?" And they're like, "No, of course not. We won't do any of this. We'll make sure that, we handle everything appropriately, and we are more than qualified." No.
Yeah.
No.
You say no, I say
surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. So here we are.
So in the interest of fairness, right, and in the interest of making sure that we're able to kind of address things, we've got a whole bunch of videos, so bear with us as we run through these videos, talk about them, run through these videos. There may be a couple pauses in the middle of the videos while we remember what we were saying, but this is Signalgate. So we'll start off with the wonderful Miss Leavitt, White House press secretary, and her opening lines.
But the mainstream media continues to be focused on a sensationalized story from the failing Atlantic magazine that is falling apart by the hour. Here are the facts. The National Security Advisor has taken responsibility for this matter. And the National Security Council immediately said, alongside the White House counsel's office, that they are looking into how a reporter's number was inadvertently added to this messaging thread. We have said all along that no classified material was sent on this messaging thread. There were no locations, no sources, or methods revealed, and there were certainly no war plans discussed.
I like how, she wants to sit there and say that, the Atlantic is falling apart by the hour. And that, we're not discussing war plans in this shit.
Yeah, so the thing about her argument, right, is that it's falling up, the article itself is falling apart by the hour, when in reality the article itself has provided detailed information. The dude tried his damnedest in his initial Goldberg tried his damnedest in his initial report to not reveal classified information. Like, if he thought it was classified,
to keep it minimal.
Right. He wasn't going to push that out there. But what wound up happening...
Which, I mean, kudos to him.
I mean, that's a good reporter right there, right? But what wound up happening is that on Tuesday, when the intelligence team went before the Senate and they all said, and you'll see this, no classified information. Well, Goldberg was like, all right, cool. Like, here you go. Right? But so here's where
they threw a fit.
Right. And here's where it's important to be able to understand what it is that you're looking at right now. For the listeners at home, I've pulled up the screenshots, and I'm not going to read them to you, but you should be able to see them on video if you're watching on video. If not, folks, we'll find a way to make sure that you have the ability to see this. But go ahead.
For me, it almost felt like, they were like, oh, well, you're wrong. You don't have this stuff. It's fake news. And he was like, okay, here you go.
I mean, almost.
Bit him in the ass. Yeah, right.
Almost, right? So what I will call out to, right, is there's a couple things. One, at the very beginning, right, it says Michael Waltz added you to the group. Now, the you is the reporter, okay? When you scroll down and you get to the end, right, or right towards the end, right? There's the section that, and I'll read this section in a minute, but the section that talks to the details of the operation. And then at the very bottom of that, after J.D. Vance says, I will say a prayer for victory, Michael Waltz set disappearing message time to 4 weeks.
Because it's usually only, a couple hours?
I mean, you can set it on your own, right? But it was initially set at 1 week. Waltz set it to 4 weeks. So to me, what that reads as, Michael Waltz intended for this press reporter to be in the chat. Michael Waltz intended for this to get leaked. Michael Waltz knew what he was doing. Michael Waltz
was like
trying to
CYA.
Right. Well, what he was doing is he was trying to be the whistleblower without being an overt whistleblower. Because he knew that the minute that he blew the whistle, he would get attacked and he would get punished. And so his only option was to try to set it so that he could have some plausible deniability, while at the same speed relating it to, or allowing the public to know exactly what the government under Trump was doing. Now, Caroline Leavitt talked to, and as did Tulsi Gabbard and every other member of the Security Council. They have said, there's no classified information. Even the Secretary of Defense said there's no classified information. We don't talk about sources. We don't talk about methods. We don't talk about target packages. We didn't talk about means. We didn't talk about weapon systems. None of that, right? Well,
wrong.
I can tell you right now, Pete Hegseth, all caps, team update, time, now, 11:44 Eastern Time. Weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM we are a go for mission launch. 12:15 Eastern Time, F-18's launch. Mind you, the time that he sent this was 11:44. So 12:15, 30 minutes later, the F-18s are scheduled to launch. 13:45, the trigger-based F-18. So this is an hour after the F-18s have launched, right? So this is all planning, right? So
Right.
he's saying this beforehand. He's saying all of this at 11:45. He says trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time, right? Now, the target-based window is based off of where the target is. If the target is at home, guess what? Then trigger has been met, then we can strike him, right? And then adds also strike drones launch MQ-9s. At 14:10, more F-18s launch, second strike package. 14:15, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop depending on earlier trigger-based targets. And then 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched, right? So here's what I got for you. All of that information, right? One, we're talking target packages. They're talking about a target, right? We're talking weapon systems. There's the Tomahawks, right? You could loosely base the F-18s and the MQ-9s as potential targets as well. And the fact that all of those things, there's really only one way for them to come into the country. And so had the enemy, had the threat, had the Houthis gotten prior notification about this, especially given the fact that this specific text message was sent an hour prior to the actual jets being on target, means that they had an hour. They would have had an hour to set themselves up, right?
Right, or hide any of their maybe targets and collateral damage for no fucking reason.
Well, there's that too, right? But the Houthis have the capability to shoot our aircraft down. They've done it already.
I mean, that's fair.
Now, the Defense Department guidance for classification, right? So the classification guidance.
All right, hit me up.
It states that any information providing indication or advance warning that the U.S. or its allies are preparing to attack is a mandatory, no less than top secret, no foreign, which means not releasable to foreign agents. Which means that discussion, that entire discussion, should have happened on the top secret network, not on Signal, which is on the unclassified network, right? Which we talked about earlier.
On your personal phone.
Oh, and should I also mention that one of the members of this group was in Russia at the time of this conversation?
Well, Tulsi was also like in the Asia Pacific area, so not that far off as well.
Correct. 100% correct. And then, like, I kind of found this funny when Goldberg was mentioning this before he dropped the batch, because he's like, the interviewer on the New York Times asked him, "Oh, was there any more information?" And the response was, "Oh, there were a lot of emojis, and then there was the flex arm emoji, followed by a whole bunch of American flags, which was sent by Steve Witkoff." But like, this is just kind of where we stand with this, right? Like it's insane. And then on top of that, after the strike, Mr. Waltz decides to pop in with, a BDA. And guess what? BDAs, they're classified. So like at the end of the day, everything in here is something that should have absolutely been classified higher than it was. And I am absolutely appalled at the lack of care that these individuals have had. Now,
I mean, especially freaking Hegseth, the douchebag, like the one that we said, hey, guess what? He's gonna get drunk and do this stupid shit, or just do this stupid shit in general. And what is happening? Exactly what we had said.
It's kind of funny. I don't have that to share, but it's kind of funny in the congressional hearing with the National Intelligence team, one of the congressmen did ask if Hegseth was drunk
or drinking, because he had swore in his testimony under oath that he would not touch a single drop of alcohol while he is in charge of the DOD.
Yep.
Literally, under oath, everything.
Now, Ratcliffe goes, "Oh, I'm offended by that you could even say anything." Well, guess what, motherfucker? Like, I'm offended that he's going to release classified information. But this is not the first time that Hegseth has made the slips and allowed for things to be released that shouldn't have been released. Rachel Maddow actually did a really, really good job of summing that up.
Donald Trump's defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, isn't working out all that well. And it started right at the beginning. Right after he was sworn in, there was the midair collision of a passenger jet and an Army helicopter in Washington, D.C. Despite the strict and solemn rules of the Defense Department that say no information about deceased service members can be made public until 24 hours after the next of kin has been informed, Pete Hegseth, nevertheless, blurted out to the public the ranks of the 3 helicopter crew members who had just been killed in the crash. Hegseth also blurted out that the crew members had been performing a training flight on a, quote, continuity of government mission. Mr. Hegseth, quote, was later told that he should not have publicly disclosed that it was a continuity of government mission, which involves U.S. officials and military forces practicing how the government would react in the event of an emergency. Just a couple of weeks later, Mr. Hegseth took his first big international trip as defense secretary, went to a big NATO meeting in Europe, and he began the trip by just totally flummoxing not only our allies, but also a lot of Washington, when he again just blurted out that any peace deal in the Russia-Ukraine war would have to include Ukraine giving up lots of its territory and abandoning its bid to join NATO. That caused major blowback for obvious reasons. He was just giving away Ukraine's major bargaining chips even before negotiations had started. When that blowback made its way to him, Pete Hegseth sort of angrily asserted that he had basically been the victim of his own comments.
As it pertains to NATO membership not being realistic outcome for negotiations, that's something that was stated as part of my remarks here, as part of the coordination with how we're executing these ongoing negotiations.
You know, I always enjoy watching her. She's so thorough and good about everything that she does, especially when she is like, hey, you are a dumbass, until we notify people that you can't give away any identifying information, period, about who they are, what they did, or why we were doing this, especially if it's, hey, we're wondering how people are going to react when there's an accident. You know what I mean? And then to like say some stupid shit with NATO and then try to be like, oh, by the way, what I said, I didn't say it myself. Like, really, it's the fake Hegseth that had said it. The drunk guy, not me. Not me.
Like, it was said, not I said. Like, listen, bro, like you can, if you are on the record and there's video and you're recorded as saying it, then you said it, motherfucker.
Oh
like, you
my
don't
God.
get the shit. You do not get the ability to go back and backtrack on your words.
You opened your mouth and fucking said it.
Like, you don't understand the words that are coming out of your own mouth anymore.
Fuck yes. Great movie. I love it.
But I'm glad you got the reference.
Jesus. Oh, yeah. Oh, God, so good. So good.
But, I mean, at the end of the day, we continue to do this thing. We continue to play this game. And this game is, how much can we cover up? How much can we avoid? How much can we talk through and over-talk and change the narrative on this so that we can get away with it? The reality is that Pete Hegseth is nothing more than a Fox News talking head. He is nothing more than a yes man for Donald Trump. He is nothing more than a danger to the American troops. And I'm telling you, if I was still in, I would be getting kicked out because I would have absolutely made sure that he knew what I was thinking about him as my defense secretary. Honorable my
He's
ass.
He's a fucking douche, man. We said that. We'll continue to say it. He is a douche. A sexist, homophobic, transphobic, racist douche. And
Correct.
all of those are very clear. I'm not putting words in his mouth. There's plenty of accounts of him being all these things. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true.
Correct. And then you have Michael Waltz. Michael Waltz is the individual that I believe intentionally added this reporter to the group, but claims that it was an accident, it was inadvertent.
I didn't even know who he was. Let's do it.
And Michael Waltz is the National Security Advisor, so he's responsible for advising the president on all things related to the national security.
How
of
does
our
the
nation.
NSA not know classified shit or who you're adding to your group? Like, you're right. That has to be a complete setup.
To top it, like, my favorite part about both the Senate hearing and the congressional hearing was a statement from Ratcliffe, not Waltz, but Ratcliffe, about how all of the government phones came preloaded with Signal. And I'm sorry, but false. They don't come preloaded with anything. That's not a thing.
And even if that was the case,
it is ridiculous.
And even if that was the case, like, just because it's there doesn't mean that you have to use it or that you have to have it. It's like a 2-year-old, man.
I don't comprehend. But Michael Waltz has made efforts to be publicly belligerent when it comes to Jeffrey Goldberg. He's come out and said that he doesn't know who he is. He's come out and said that, there's no way that he had him in his phone, and it was completely inadvertent, and there was no way to get it. Matter of fact, he talked about how, Luke Beasley, a young podcaster, he
shout out to him.
Yeah, absolutely. But he did an episode, and I just started laughing because you could tell that this whole scenario had broken him. Because he was talking about, like, he was like, it got sucked in, like, what, you got sucked without your permission and getting sucked in, like, I'm like, okay, like, he's done, like,
no consent. Yep.
No consent
given.
I was sucked without my consent. Whoa, bro.
I woke up to this. Anyway, Jesus Christ.
Anywho, but what I did want to do is we have a video of Donald Trump kind of weighing in on this and then passing the buck over to Mike Waltz during a cabinet meeting. So I'll go ahead and play this one, and Avery will talk about it on the flip side.
Mr. President, are you going to change any of the practices that your national security officials used after a reporter was inadvertently added to a group chat about attacks on Yemen?
Well, I think it's a question I've been asked now, and I've given a few answers, and they've all been the same. We have an amazing group. Our national security now is stronger than it's ever been. We have had a very, very successful, numerous attacks on that area. These are people that shoot down ships, not only our ships, ships all over the world. They're shooting down right out of the water and damaging them badly, or they're going down. They're also shooting anything that happens to be flying in the area. We hit them very, very hard. There was no classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app, that a lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use. And I think I'll ask Mike. Mike is here. Do you want to respond to that, please?
Yes, Mr. President. You asked about lessons. I think there's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president, whether it's the Russia hoax or making up lies about Gold Star families. And this one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room.
So I thoroughly enjoy the fact that, and this is something that I found on Twitter too, right, is that the maggots are all coming out and they're swarming around, like the fact that Jeffrey Goldberg hacked his way into their Signal app, and Jeffrey Goldberg hacked his way into the phone, and Jeffrey Goldberg is so intelligent. And, you know, there's a tweet that was retweeted by Donald Trump, which says that, you know, Catherine Mayer, the leftist NPR CEO, is currently the chair of the board of Signal. And somehow, like, that now she is involved, and Signal itself brought in, like, none of that is real, folks. Like,
No.
I just don't get the extent that they will go to.
My favorite part was, you know, they used an app. Oh, if you want to call it an app, it is an app. And then you just said, well, all the government people use it. So you know that it's an app that is widely used.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the, and he didn't even say, yeah, we're going to change shit. It was, we got the best people ever, and we're just going to keep shooting shit down. Like, not even yeah, hey, let's take care of it type thing.
Well, it's because he doesn't know, right? Like, in the first rounds of questioning, he was like, oh, maybe it was a bad signal, like someone tapped into the line, like thinking that it was a phone call. And you can hear that in the interview of confusion, like he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
He stays in confusion.
I think that he lives in confusion. I mean, Donald Trump frequently goes to the golf course to golf, and you know, you talk shit on Biden and how he took vacations, but this man, I digress.
I want to point out something. I want to point out something real quick. So while all this shit was happening, and this shows the breakdown of Hegseth, that while all this shit was happening, we had 4 troops that disappeared. They got lost. And now 3 of the 4 bodies have been found in a training accident. And Trump had no idea. No idea. Nothing about him. When he was asked, he was like, I don't know anything about what you're talking. And then just went on his day like it didn't fucking matter. So why is the commander not being briefed by your DOD? Or any of them, especially because they're right outside Belarus. So I know it's not in there. It's just another breakdown of how much of a douchebag and shithead.
Well, in this is, I'm gonna have to. I got it. All right. So in their defense,
I'm sorry.
Right. More than likely, and I'm willing to say that it's more than likely, President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have not established a set of commander's critical information requirements.
So they didn't have Signal pulled up. Got it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they didn't tell their commanders, hey, when this happens, call us, right? And that's what a critical information requirement is. And so essentially, more than likely what happened is that commanders didn't get an updated or didn't get a new or adjusted set of information requirements. And so they were operating based off of their old information requirements, which probably said, hey, listen, like, if you have troops that go missing, like, focus on your level and figure it out, right? And that's what the commanders on the ground were doing. And they probably, to be fair, hadn't reached up and notified the chains of command to get it to the Pentagon, right? So more than likely, Hegseth didn't even fucking know.
I mean, again, that's just a breakdown. And, you know, I hated to put... It was just another of, hey, by the way, stupid Hegseth. Here we are. So, pushing on.
Right.
My bad.
And so the next one is Marco Rubio, right? So Marco Rubio was involved in this too. And we're literally going down the line and just like, these like are the individuals that were in the process.
The top people.
And the best part is they all gave statements, and all of these statements are public, and all of these statements are recorded. So when and if Republicans decide to take their heads out of their ass in Congress, or Democrats take control of Congress and they open up investigation, every single one of these asshats is going down. They're all going to burn. And I do foresee all of them having a stint in jail, except for Donald J. Trump, who is, you know, he can't do anything because he's the president.
You know, moving on.
On the first question, let me just say on the signal thing. This thing was set up for purposes of coordinating how everyone was going to call. You know, when these things happen, I need to call foreign ministers, especially of our close allies. We need to notify members of Congress. Other members of the team have different people they need to notify as well. And that was the purpose of why it was set up. Obviously, someone made a mistake. Someone made a big mistake and added a journalist. Nothing against journalists, but you ain't supposed to be on that thing. So they got on there and this happened. I've been, you know, so I can speak to myself or my presence on it. I think my role on it was just speaking for my role. I contributed to it twice. I identified my point of contact, which is my chief of staff, and then later on, I think 3 hours after the White House's official announcements had been made, I congratulated the members of the team. I've been assured by the Pentagon and everyone involved that none of the information that was on there, though not intended to be divulged, obviously that was a mistake and that shouldn't have happened, and the White House is looking at it, but that none of the information on there at any point threatened the operation or the lives of our servicemen. And in fact, it was a very successful operation. It is an ongoing operation.
I like how.
Hold on.
He's just
Nothing against
basically-
journalists, but you ain't supposed to be in that thing. Like, bitch, you ain't supposed to be in that thing talking about what you were talking about either. Sorry. All right, I'll let you go.
Basically, I was going with the whole. I only talked twice, and what I said was okay. And you know that journalist shouldn't have been there, and you know it should have been put out for everybody to see. And so I just did some emojis and said hi. So glad everything was great. And yeah, I made sure that my team knew about it, and I'm good. No cookie jar, no hand stuck. I'm good.
Yeah, he was definitely trying to do some CYA type shit right there.
He was dancing like a motherfucker.
But you can also tell that Marco Rubio is not on the in crowd.
Absolutely. Only 2 times he spoke.
I mean, you can tell that he's not part of the group. He's that nerd that everyone keeps around because he's smart.
Well, that's not. Yes, but if you look, he's same, not same. So how we have the racist, homophobic. Yeah. So
Oh, you mean the token?
Yeah. He's a DEI hire. So he's on the outside. You're right. I mean,
unlike Hexeth, who's the DUI hire. Is that what you're saying?
That's true. I mean, don't get me wrong. You got Tulsi, but she does enough stuff that they just treat her like one of the guys. So there it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of Tulsi, we've got a number of videos on her. So
oh my god,
I'll play them back to back, but we'll play them one and then we'll talk about it, play another one, talk about it, and play another one, talk about it, and see how we go from there.
There's so many.
So I think the first one is her and the House talking about her role or her clarification statements on the Signal Gate situation.
I want to address briefly the Signal Chat issue that I know many of you are concerned about. The President and National Security Advisor Waltz held a press conference yesterday with a clear message. It was a mistake that a reporter was inadvertently added to a Signal Chat with high-level national security principals having a policy discussion about imminent strikes against the Houthis and the effects of the strike. The National Security Advisor has taken full responsibility for this, and the National Security Council is conducting an in-depth review along with technical experts working to determine how this reporter was inadvertently added to this chat. The conversation was candid and sensitive, but as the President National Security Advisor stated, no classified information was shared. There were no sources, methods, locations, or war plans that were shared.
She was like, hey, we talked about this. This was addressed. This is what everybody was saying. So this is the information that I had at the time. This is why I said what I said. Again, she's trying to cover up because if I remember everything correctly, during her whole time, she couldn't, to her recollection, she couldn't remember, or I don't recall, or all of this shit. And it's always crazy that, for some reason, there's always amnesia. It's like selective amnesia when shit happens, but then all of a sudden, Oh yeah, my bad. I did remember after you straight up call them on the shit that you know that they know, especially because it's her first little mm, assignment, first little mission, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You know, again, you got to remember it. You gonna like, how can you forget the first time that you had, hey, we're gonna fuck up some people. I
Yeah,
don't forget.
100%. And then the next video that we're going to talk about is Representative Crow talking to Tulsi Gabbard about the warnings that the National Security Advisory Council put out with regards to Signal, right? Like, they clearly said it, and this was at the beginning of last month that they pushed out this, hey, don't use Signal. If you're going to use Signal, be aware that there's a chance that they could be hacked. And now this.
General Hawk, the NSA recently warned its employees not to use the Signal app. Is that correct?
What we did, Congressman, is we put out cybersecurity advisories on a whole host of systems.
On the Signal app that was included in that advisory, right?
What we've done is we've put out an advisory on how to use the Signal app and other encrypted applications, because we do encourage our employees and their families to use encrypted.
Because there's risk to that app.
There are.
Okay. General Cruz, DOD also issued a warning about vulnerabilities to the Signal app recently, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Director Gabbard, you were on the Signal text chain in question, correct?
Yes.
As was Mr. Witkoff, the administration's lead negotiator with the Russians, correct?
Yes.
And at the time, Mr. Witkoff was actually in Russia during this chat discussion, was he not?
I was not aware of that.
Was he on his personal phone at the time?
I don't know.
Well, it's my understanding that he was indeed in Russia. Director Gabbard, you were also traveling during this discussion, correct?
Yes.
And where were you?
I was traveling through the Asia-Pacific region. I don't recall which country I was in at that time.
You don't remember the country?
I'd have to go back and look at the schedule.
Director Gabbard, I want to direct your attention again to the text chain where it says, just confirmed with CENTCOM, we are a go for mission launch. Does that indicate to you that there is about to be a military operation?
Yes.
Director Gabbard, earlier in this hearing, we heard about the DOD's classification standards. I want to now turn my attention to your classification standards. You're the Director of National Intelligence. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence classification guide says, quote, information providing indication or advance warning that the U.S. or its allies are preparing for an attack, end quote, is to be classified as top secret. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Director Gabbard, have the Houthis indicated an ability to shoot down American aircraft?
Yes.
They have in fact done so, haven't they?
Yes.
Including MQ-9 Reapers, haven't they?
That's correct.
And that was one of the systems used in the attack recently that's the subject of this discussion, is it not?
Correct.
Yeah, what was crazy is they put out like instructions to the military members and their families, because they're like, hey, we encourage you to use these things, but just so you know, this is what can happen, but go ahead and use it. And I just want to put out that Tulsi always looks fucking confused through this whole question. She's just like, yeah, like, dude.
I think it's because she doesn't know what she's supposed to be doing. I think her Russian
if
handlers
it's not on the paper.
Well, I mean, her Russian handlers haven't told her what to say. So, like,
right?
I mean, what do I say? And Vladimir Putin's like, "Oh, you're fucked, bitch."
And if it's not on the paper in front of her, I've noticed Levitt does the same thing. You got the question up, here's the paper, and reads line for line, like, haha.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, like...
Well, that's the funny thing about Levitt is Levitt talked about how she wasn't, like, gonna use a binder. Comes out
Notes.
with stacks of papers. Like, yep, yeah, you
It's not a
thought it was
binder.
easy. You thought it was easy.
It's not a binder, so it's different, okay?
Yeah.
It's
So
a folder, not a binder.
what's interesting is that, and this next video happened the day before, right? And I'm kind of starting to like identify. You know, we had Senator McCain, who was a war hero, and this man, like, Republican, but he was a moderate Republican, and he worked his ass off. Right now, his daughter, somehow she's bought into the Trump lie, hook and sinker. But
there's special people all around.
Right, but what I see coming from Kelly, Senator Kelly, is something along the same lines, right? This guy is shrewd, he's intelligent, he's smart, he knows his shit, he's a military veteran, and when people bullshit him, he doesn't take the bullshit. So, you know, watch.
He's an astronaut. He is a twin who also an astronaut, and you know he had to deal with his wife getting shot in the head, you know, on live TV.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's been through a lot, but I agree his way of thinking it's refreshing, and you know no bullshit, no bullshit. I like it.
And Elon Musk called him a traitor because he supports non-authoritarian regimes. But I digress. But listen to this one in the way that he engages with Gabbard and talks through the process. It's kind of like he already knows the answers to the questions that he's asking, and he's working his way to catch her in a lie. So let's give this one a listen real quick.
I'm going to come back to the topic of the day here, the signal chain as reported by The Atlantic. Ms. Gabbard and Mr. Ratcliffe, you each testified that there was no information operational in nature, no classified information. So I want to ask each of you just a series of, just respond yes or no. I'll start with Ms. Gabbard. In the signal chain that we have been talking about, was there any mention of a target in Yemen?
I don't remember mention of specific targets.
Any generic target?
I believe there was discussion around targets in general.
Mr. Ratcliffe.
I think that's consistent with my recollection. Again, I don't have access to that.
Was there any mention, Ms. Gabbard, of a weapon or weapons system?
I don't recall specific weapons systems being named.
I'm not talking about specific, any weapon or weapons system.
I don't recall specific names of systems or weapons being used or named within the
Well, I'm
chat.
not asking whether, I don't want you to tell me what the specific weapon was, but any weapon at all. Mr. Ratcliffe, same question.
I don't recall.
How about anything about timing? Ms. Gabbard.
I don't recall specific timing.
Was there any mention?
I won't get into the detail of the conversation, but obviously there was a significant amount of planning and internal discussions that had occurred prior to and outside of this signal chat.
Mr. Ratcliffe, you're nodding your head. Any mention of any military unit whatsoever? Mr. Ratcliffe.
Not that I recall.
Ms. Gabbard.
Not that I recall.
Okay, so I understand that DOD policy prohibits discussion of even what is called controlled unclassified information, or CUI, on unsecured devices. Are both of you aware of that DOD policy?
I haven't read that policy.
Not familiar with the DOD policy, but I would say that the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for DOD in deciding what would be classified information.
Ms. Gabbard, does the intelligence community have a policy that prohibits discussion of controlled unclassified information?
Yes.
It does. Okay. Controlled unclassified information, according to DOD, includes information that is information that has not been approved for public release. Would you, of what's been disclosed publicly of the signal chain, would either of you feel that that would be approved for public release? Ms. Gabbard.
The discussion that took place in that Signal chat group was a conversation reflecting national security leaders and the vice president around the president's objectives.
So yes or no, would you approve that for public release?
I don't feel I can answer that question here.
Because of the nature of this hearing?
Because of the nature of a private discussion that took place between individual leaders in our government.
It would make sense that you would not approve it for public release, wouldn't it?
There are other factors that would go into that consideration.
Mr. Ratcliffe, yes or no?
I wouldn't approve the release of classified information. Again, as I've said,
I'm not talking about classified information, Mr. Ratcliffe. I'm talking about information that has not been approved for public release. That is information that is considered controlled, unclassified information.
The principles that would have been on that would have been individuals capable of approving that for public release.
Do you, I got 20 seconds. The deliberation as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country, would you consider that classified information, Ms. Gabbard?
Well, the information was not classified.
This is not, I'm not talking about this. I'm just talking about deliberation from principles as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country. Would you consider that classified information? I'm not talking about what happened this week.
There are other factors that would go into determining that classification.
Mr. Ratcliffe, the deliberation between principals in our national security apparatus about whether or not to strike another country, would you consider that to be classified information?
Pre-decisional strike deliberation should be conducted through classified channels.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And this is the whole I can't remember.
Yeah. So remember that was done before the second batch of text messages came out, right? And so at the time, the I do not recall worked because there was no evidence to the contrary. Unfortunately,
I haven't been caught. I haven't been caught all the way yet.
Unfortunately, as soon as they said there was nothing classified in the messages, like we said before, Goldberg went, "Oh, okay, here's the rest," and you had the rest of them.
And
right?
you know, it's like I said. You wanted to say, oh, this was fake. This didn't really happen. You don't have proof. Okay, motherfucker. Here we go. This is what we have. It was straight up. We're playing bullshit, and I win.
So it's funny to me, like when you go through your in briefing, right, to get read into your clearances, you get briefed on what it means to have or to classify something. And one of the biggest things that you get hit with, like one of your first slides, is sources, methods, and means. And every time I hear these guys talk, and gals, and they talk about sources, methods, and means, all I can think of is they got to the very first slide of the very first brief on the very first class that they had to take in order to be granted their clearance, and that's where they stopped.
Click, 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 click.
Like, they didn't read anything else. They just got that.
Because you got to click through.
And so at the end of the day,
you got to click, 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 click.
Like, listen, like, we talk about incompetence, right? Like, I think I legitimately
down and
think
check.
they are the most incompetent individuals on the planet. I think that Tulsi Gabbard is incompetent. I think that Hegseth is incompetent. I think that Ratcliffe is incompetent.
And they're veterans. That's what really pisses me off.
Right. And we're going to talk about Ratcliffe here in a second. Matter of fact, we have his video. but there's just so much out there that it's like, what are you doing, right? Like, why are we constantly going through this? Here's Radcliffe talking about his job and his role and what he does for the CIA, and in relation to Signal.
So my responsibility as CIA director, one of its responsibilities is to kill terrorists. And that's exactly what I did along with President Trump's excellent national security team. That's what we should be focused on. With regard to that article, I also would appreciate the opportunity to relay the fact that yesterday I spent 4 hours answering questions from senators as a result of that article that were intimating that I transmitted classified information because there were hidden messages. Those messages were revealed today and revealed that I did not transmit classified information, and that the reporter, who I don't know, I think intentionally intended it to indicate that. That reporter also indicated that I had released the name of an undercover CIA operative in that signal chat. In fact, I had released the name of my chief of staff, who is not operating undercover. That was deliberately false and misleading, and I appreciate the opportunity to reflect that my answers haven't changed. I used an appropriate channel to communicate sensitive information. It was permissible to do so.
Yeah, he's just like, well, this shit happened, but my job is to kill people, and I did it. Gold star, A+, give me a popsicle. And
I hate
that's the main thing that we should be talking about right here.
I hate to break it to Mr. Radcliffe, but CIA director's job is not to kill people.
No. It's to have knowledge and information.
The CIA director's job is
investigate.
Collection, right? It's the military's job to kill. I know that's what you just said. I'm just like, I'm just...
Silence.
Like, warheads on foreheads is the military,
That's what I feel like
bro.
today.
Like, the CIA does not know. No. I can't.
No.
I cannot
Remember, we
just...
didn't talk. No. We didn't talk about it. Remember, we didn't talk about it. Remember, it wasn't mentioned. Okay, that would be a weapon. We did not talk about it. It wasn't in there.
Yep.
And again, right. These people
Tomahawk
should know
cruise
better
missile.
because they're veterans. So, you know. Yep, not there. Did not exist. We're not talking about it. You know, it's kind of like we don't talk about Bruno.
Yeah.
No. Okay. We don't talk about Bruno. Anyway.
I wasn't going to go into the sing song. I wasn't going to do it. Not what I was going to do.
It's stuck in my head now. But, you know what? My favorite part's coming, though. My favorite part's coming. Tell me what happened after it all broke loose.
So I was actually thinking about like
this bitch.
leaving this part out, but I can't, right? So like nothing is greater than talking about the response and using the one, the only, the unsinkable Marjorie,
the smartest person
Taylor,
in the box.
God. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
You know what? She is the brightest crayon in our box, okay? The sharpest tool in the not shed. You know, we bury that. It's the green one, okay? It's the greeny weenie. We're not doing it, man. Just
Yep. The one fungus. Who would be tempted by Representative McBride. So without further ado,
that one. You're right. Seduced. Do it. Let's do it.
I can't. I'm laughing.
Hey, what country are you from? What country are you from? You know, see, we don't care about our UK allies. You know, fuck them. You know, we don't care. We only care about, Americans.
Representative, another story that relates to the media today. Have you seen the new information revealed by The Atlantic magazine about the signal texts?
We're talking about NPR and PBS, not The Atlantic. So
But do you believe that this was classified information that was shared on that
No,
group?
the administration has said it is not classified information. I think this is a continuance of someone like you to try to push an issue that isn't even relevant, and I think that we're carrying on. Thank you.
Detail of timings and weapons, is that not classified information?
Yes. Yeah. Anybody else?
Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from? The UK?
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
Okay, do you care?
No. You should care about your own borders.
Do you care about American lives being put at risk?
Let me tell you something. Do you care about people from your country? What about all the women that are raped by migrants?
Do you care about
No, do you care? Okay, you're
do you care about American lives being put at risk? About service members fighting for your country?
I don't care
and
about
your Vice President and your Defense Secretary?
Yeah, this is an American journalist. Thank you.
I'm an American, and I'd like to hear your answer to what she's asking.
I'm not answering her question because I don't care about her network. If you would like to ask, I can answer.
Do you have any concerns whatsoever about the complete disregard of operational security from the top level of this administration?
You want to know about complete disregard about operational security? You should talk about the Biden administration and how they ripped our borders open to terrorists, cartel, child sex trafficking, human trafficking, and drug trafficking across our borders for 4 years. The Trump administration is doing a great job, and I stand by their statements.
So you have
I stand by their statements. My comment to you is I'm thankful to President Trump that he is leading us out of wars, that he's ending the war in Ukraine, where American lives could have been killed if Joe Biden was still president today, whether he liked it or not. We're talking about NPR and PBS today. We're talking about fake news that was funded with federal funding from American taxpayers. That's what this is about today, not journalists from the UK.
A journalist is being vilified for exposing failings in the way that your government conducts itself. Is that not that journalist doing a good job? Does Defence Secretary Hegseth need to resign over this, Representative?
Absolutely not. He's doing a great job.
He's doing a great job, but he was putting American service members' lives at risk.
Your country's going to put
this is deflect
lives fighting a war in Ukraine that's not even a member of NATO.
Is this an exercise in deflection?
This should be an exercise in you worrying about your own
country. And I like how the American reporter was like, answer her question, bitch. Oh, God, it pissed her off so much.
We need more of that, right? We need more reporters going, hey, listen, like, you're going to answer the reporter's question, or I'm going to ask you the same question. You're going to answer my question, or the next person is going to ask that question, right? We need more reporters to stand up to these motherfucking asshats. I'm sorry. I know I cuss a lot, but listen, like, I cannot stand MTG, and this was right before as they were walking into the OGR hearing on whether or not to defund PBS and NPR. And let me tell you, like, that was terrible.
Oh God, she was already on one. She was already on one. Like, Big Bird and Sesame Street gonna, Bert and Ernie gonna turn your kids gay. Anyway, so
ironically, Sesame Street is a private organization that just happened to license their shows to PBS.
I mean, that's fair. I remember Wishbone and, Reading Rainbow. I bet they wouldn't allow Reading Rainbow now.
Yeah.
Assholes. All right, what else we got? I know we got some more stuff.
She's terrible, right? And, we already talked about
horrible.
A lot of, like, the response coming from the right with regards to saying that it was Goldberg who hacked it and yada, yada, yada. So we're going to blame everyone but the people who were responsible because that's what the right does, right? But here's bottom line up front, right? We talked about at the very beginning how these individuals are not the first in the line, right? And we went back and we looked over every single political appointee. And we talked about, what happens when you're not a political appointee. You get fried, right? Well, one example that we have for you is, and this is actually a current example, right? A Department of Homeland Security employee sent an email regarding ICE deportation operations, inadvertently added a reporter weird, inadvertently added a reporter to the email chain. Now, this is official emails, right? Inadvertently added to the email chain, sent the email, realized the mistake, contacted the reporter, and fixed the problem. But despite all of that, is getting fired because they disclosed classified information, not classified, but operational details about an ICE operation, right? Which is far less sensitive than, you know, a pending operation to kill bad guys. Like, at the end of the day, I think this is just one example of, hey, like, if you're not one of them, you're probably going to get hung out to dry. But without further ado,
we start in Washington, where the Trump administration is facing new questions about another accidental leak involving sensitive information. Multiple sources tell NBC News that a Department of Homeland Security employee mistakenly added a reporter to an email chain. That included details about an immigration and customs enforcement operation. Now, this happened back in late January, but now she has apparently been put on administrative leave and could lose her security clearance. This comes as senior Trump officials are still dealing with the fallout from that Signal group chat. Now, a federal judge is ordering all agencies involved in the text chain to keep all their communications about those U.S. military strikes in Yemen. NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley is the one who broke this story about the DHS worker. So, Julia, from what we understand, this was not a new employee. This was a DHS staffer who served in multiple administrations. That includes Trump's entire first term. So just what happened here, and how is it different from that other group chat leak that we've been paying so much attention to this week?
Yeah, Joe, this is a career employee. And for people outside of Washington, that just means that they're not appointed by one specific administration. They don't serve just Republicans or just Democrats. This is someone who has served across multiple agencies within the Department of Homeland Security since the George W. Bush administration. And one day in late January, she was sending an internal email about plans for an upcoming ICE raid in Denver. And she accidentally started typing, and it populated an email address of a reporter at a conservative publication here in Washington. Now, she called the reporter, and the reporter agreed not to publish it, but the email got flagged. She was placed on administrative leave. Then she was asked to come in for a polygraph and give up her personal cell phone. We think that means that the Department of Homeland Security may have thought that she was leaking other information, although she told colleagues this was a one-time mistake. She's not leaked any other information. And since then, in fact, just in the past week, she's been told she may have her security clearance revoked. Now, the reason this story matters now is because it looks so different from the treatment that we're seeing of Waltz, of Vance, of Hegseth, and others who were on that Signal chat. And I went and I talked to people in the national security space who said, look, what was on that chat many might deem classified, even though the Trump administration is now saying it's not. And what she shared was law enforcement sensitive.
So what I think is bullshit is this happened in January, and now she's getting a slap on the wrist. All because everybody else got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And now someone has to be made an example of. And unfortunately, it's her, and her career is going to be fucked. And anywhere else that she's going to want to be to work is going to be fucked. And it's bullshit.
So I don't know if we can correlate the two. I probably happened is that there was an investigation that ensued, and the investigation, because you know how investigations are, they can go for like months, and nothing really happens, but they just occur for months, and it just so happened that the timing.
Don't say coincidence, because there's no. Okay, I was like, don't do it.
The timing was convenient. But I don't think
just saying.
I don't think you can correlate the two of them. But the long
besides the fact,
right? And all I can say is that at the end of the day, this is one of those situations, right? Less sensitive, maximum punishment. Highly sensitive, no punishment. Like, what is the level of like accountability that we're applying to our elected officials and the people that they appoint to do their jobs within their areas of expertise, right? We have a drunk Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. We have a Russian spy as the Director of National Intelligence. The incompetence is real.
It is. And again, it just is so frustrating. Like if this happens, it should be clear cut across the board. Hey, if this happens, this is your punishment. If this happens, this is your punishment. It doesn't matter. And if you rank higher, you shouldn't get less punishment, but more punishment.
100%.
You know, not a, hey, private here, fucking fuzzy nobody gets 20 years because they accidentally put a flash drive, not even accidentally, but put a flash drive in a computer, or hey, they plugged up their phone because they wanted to charge it. Yeah, you're suck. You're sucking. Embrace the suck. And but hey, this 4-star, or hey, this lieutenant did it the same thing, and sorry sir, maybe we should do some extra training here. Let me go over this slide with you again about why we can't do this. I've never understood that. I will never understand it. I think it's stupid. It's asinine.
It makes a whole lot of not sense. And that's the unfortunate thing about all of this, is that we're continuously going through this process, and I think we're starting to see the cracks in the foundation. And that's a topic for another episode. But I do think that this administration is going to start falling apart fairly quickly. And we'll start to see the cracks. That's kind of all we got for this week. If you want to add some information, or if you got something to talk about with regards to the show, please drop us a message in the comments down below, and we will respond to them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, like you were saying, that's all we got, and thank you so much. Hey, but I did want to put out some new information while I got everybody here still. So, we have 64, right, on Facebook. And 64 is great, but we can't necessarily reach out and talk to everybody all the time, and especially because we are always hanging out, and we'll sit there and talk all day or while we're working. We decided to go ahead, and I got Carl to explore a little. Well, not just I, but we got him to explore and figure out what Discord is like. And Papa Bear over here, he's liking it. He's liking it. And so yeah, we do have a Discord. We'll put it on N64. We'll put it in the show notes. It's on the website. And come hang out with us. I know the other day I was just doing research, and I stayed in one of the chats, the voice chats, all day long. Come hang out with us. Come talk to me. I'm here. You want to talk about stuff? Let's do it. That's the best way to reach out. And we want to get to know you guys better.
Well said. All right, remember, folks, stay informed,
stay engaged,
and always color outside the political lines.